Hi, Chuck Hawley from West Marine with a buyer's guide on fiberglass care products. You know, fiberglass has obviously revolutionized boat building and boat owning. It ends up being a very rugged material that requires a minimum amount of maintenance, and it looks pretty darn good. But eventually, the gloss on that fiberglass surface begins to get duller, and in some cases very dull, and you need to use a little elbow grease to bring it back to its former glory. One of the challenges that we have is that a customer will come into one of our stores or call us on the phone and say, you know, my boat just doesn't look as good as it used to. What do I use to bring back the color, or what do I use to bring back the gloss? And the challenge is, it's hard to determine over the phone or even just through an interaction, how bad is it? So we've come up with a 5-step program that allows you to communicate with West Marine and to figure out how bad is your fiberglass and what do you need to do to recover it. So we describe these as being level 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're going to go through products that work very well depending on whether your boat simply needs to be washed or all the way up to using a heavy-duty rubbing compound. Stay with us. We're going to look at different boats with different degrees of deterioration. You know, if your boat's just been sitting out for a while and has some debris on it, you may not need a fiberglass boat care product at all. You may just need something that's a boat soap. And in fact, this is what we call level 0. This boat has a nice shine to it. It's just dirty. It's got some debris on it. So in that case, for level 0, we like to use something like this biodegradable boat soap. In this case, a West Marine's Pure Oceans Crystal Boat Soap. And this has got the DFE label on it, which stands for Design for the Environment, which is a label that you can put on products that meet certain standards by the EPA. So it's a very biodegradable, very benign boat soap. Or you could use something like this Starbright Sea Safe Boat Wash, biodegradable, very mild formula, and yet very, very effective. And one of the nice things about using these formulas is that they're low sudsing. So if the water that you're using to wash your boat's going directly into the water, it doesn't make a big bubble bath downstream of you. Here's an example of a boat that I'd call a level 1. A level 1 boat is clean, but it's lost its gloss. It doesn't have that shiny, you know, right out of the showroom look. So in that case, we'd recommend using a liquid wax or possibly a polish. In this case, this is one of the Scotchgard brand from 3M, and it's a marine liquid wax. So this is, you know, the classic wax that you put on with a soft towel, let it dry to a haze, and then buff it with a buffing cloth, and it comes out looking beautifully, just like you would a car that you need to wax. It's also possible to use a product like this Starbright Sea Safe Boat Wash and Wax. This is a combination soap product and wax in one. I don't think it does quite as good a job as a specific wax on top, but between waxings, this is a good way to keep your boat clean and shiny. Now this boat's an example of what I consider a level 2 boat. A level 2 boat has had a lot of wax over its life. It's trying, but the colors are really muted and faded. It sort of needs a little bit of a grind down to get below that oxidized layer. And that's where a color restorer like this Meguiar's 44 will work. This has a modest amount of abrasive, which sort of cuts through that oxidized layer, gets down to the original gel coat color, and then you'll want to go over that with a wax. And in fact, this is again an area where there are multi-step products. Here's a 3M product, which is both a color restorer and a wax. So this cuts down the number of steps that you need to take by one because you don't have to wax it after you've used the color restorer. It may be that at some point you buy a boat that's been badly neglected for a number of years. It may be sitting out in a field someplace or it just hasn't been used. Maybe a boat like this. And you know, when you rub your hand on it, you get a bunch of white oxidation like this from the gel coat. Well, white oxidation coming off on your hand, that means you have a level 3 boat. And a level 3 boat needs to have sort of a mild abrasive rubbed into the surface to cut through that oxidation and get down to hard, flat gel coat. So that's where we use something like 3M's Marine Rubbing Compound. This is an abrasive product that goes on a lot like a wax with a buffing rag. After you wash the boat first, go over it with some of the rubbing compound and then buff it off and then go over it with a high quality wax on top of that. It may be that we're even too far deteriorated for that and you have to use a stronger rubbing compound like the Super Duty rubbing compound, and we'll see an example of using this in just a minute. Well, now we've gotten all the way down to level 4. Level 4 is for severely oxidized fiberglass surfaces. In fact, they're so oxidized that they feel rough to the touch. If you feel this old Flying Junior, it feels almost like it's got sandpaper in the surface. That's because the surface has actually been etched over time. In that case, we need to use something like this 3M Super Duty rubbing compound. Now, you'd use this either by hand, a lot of muscle, or you'd use it with an electric polisher. Now, if you don't feel so good using an electric polisher because you actually can take off quite a bit of material, go gentler and use a nice soft pad. The other thing that you can use is wet or dry sandpaper. So this is 320. This is about as rough as I would use. And it's amazing to think that you'd actually sand a fiberglass boat, but you're going to have to, because you're going to have to get it down flat to kind of virgin material. And from 320 you can go up to maybe 400 or 500 or 600, go progressively finer until you can go from that point to a rubbing compound or a color restorer all the way through to a waxed surface. So I hope this brief buyer's guide has been helpful for you. As I said earlier, there are 5 levels of gel coat deterioration that we're dealing with. You may have a level 0 boat, which just requires a good boat soap to bring back its cleanliness and its shine and make it look good again. You may have a level 1 boat, which is a little dull, but a nice paste wax or liquid wax will bring back the shine. You may have a level 2 boat, which has sort of a whitish oxidation, but you can't actually pull the oxidation off with your fingertips. In that case, a good quality color restorer is in order. You may have a level 3 boat where you can, when you rub the surface, you get an oxidation off of it, kind of a white powdery. In that case, you need to use a rubbing compound. Or you may have a boat like this, which is a level 4 boat, which requires either a Super Duty rubbing compound or possibly some wet or dry sandpaper. In any case, try to use the least abrasive material possible and come to West Marine for the best in product advice at any of our 300 stores across the country or online at westmarine.com.